I'll Read That Again for the radio for a couple of years, and the BBC wanted another series, and Bill and I had graduated, as it were, to television then, and we were working on Doctor in the House and various things, which pays better than radio, although it's not actually harder work. And I thought, well, we're not going to be able to do both, and the radio was going to take a bit of a beating on that. So I thought, I wonder if there's a way of doing it without a script. And I'd appeared on a few sort of panel games, and I thought, well, maybe just make a game and get the same cast that do I'm Sorry, I'll Read That Again on, to just be silly, basically, and give them the basis of an apparently serious panel game, and let them lark about, which is what we did, and I've been doing ever since. David Hatch, who was the producer, and I had to think of a chairman, because nobody on I'm Sorry, I'll Read That Again was quite right for that role. And we both, funnily enough, came up with Humphrey Lyttelton, because he was a radio voice who was well known from his jazz programs. Posh voice, Eton and the Guards, but a jazz man, and therefore a little bit louche, a little bit disreputable. We thought, oh, that'll suit us.
I don't know about now, but in the old days they used to do pilot shows, and I did several pilot shows. And you used to go into a studio somewhere, or a seated audience with a seated audience or not, and you'd do the show, and you'd pick up a studio fee, which was nicely into 3 figures, and then you'd disappear home in the confident expectation that it would go straight down the plug hole. And indeed, most of them did go straight down the plug hole. So I went along to the Playhouse Theatre in London when they rang me up and said, if we've got this show that's coming up, and would you like to do it? So I looked down to the bottom line and saw the fee, and I said, yes, I'll come along and do it.
He was horrified when he got lumbered with this one for 30 odd years. I don't think he's ever forgiven us for that.
We started, of course, in a place called the Paris Studio. It had been a cinema called the Paris Cinema, a little art cinema showing continental film. But it was down Lower Regent Street, and as far as I remember, the first shows were done at lunchtime. And I remember that the audience consisted largely of bag ladies. They used to come out of their doorways when they saw a queue forming, in the mistaken belief that there was food at the end of it.
The audience in the Paris was only about 300. But I wanted to take it away because often the lady who used to distribute the free tickets to those shows we would give one lot to a series of old people's homes, and another half she'd just dump in the Thames. So you'd get a half full group of sort of pensioners, some of whom had just come in, it seemed, to keep warm.
Then we went into things like the Playhouse in London, and bigger places. And now in recent times, we've been going into these huge, great halls.
When we took it away, suddenly the audiences seemed to want to be there more, and they were definitely more enthusiastic, and it gave the teams more pleasure to do it. And if it becomes a chore, then the joy goes out of it. And I think if there's one thing that people remark more than anything else about this, is that the panellists really seem to enjoy doing it. And that pleasure is definitely sort of contagious.
Well, I think it's because nobody really knows what's going to happen next. It's not a formula show. A lot of the games are familiar games and all that sort of thing, but there's always something happening, that people aren't expecting. And as I say, the audiences don't know. And I don't know what's going to happen next most of the time. In fact, after it's been, I don't even know it's been.
I don't really want to answer that, because the minute you say something good about something, it goes to pieces. But there are certain things over the last 20 years or so that have made a huge difference. We've had some good producers, but John Naismith, who's now taken over, he works so hard on it. I remember getting a Sony award, and I made a speech and I said, I don't think his marriage will last, because he works so hard on the show, and his wife appreciated that.
I think it gives most shows a run for its money. Being a panel game, it can, because you can line them up, bang, 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 bang. There you are. Whereas if you're a sitcom, you have to sort of build to these. Whereas you just, you can crack them like eggs.
I think people are waiting for us to get it right. They've been very patient, and they've given us 35 years, and I hope their patience doesn't run out.
I started, in my early 20s doing this. I'm now 43. And Ian, who writes, is kind of, a generation older than me. So if they're people of 4 generations all finding something funny, then clearly, you're going to be doing something right there.
When we've got a recording day, I vomit for 4 to 5 hours normally, through sheer naked terror of having to sit with Tim, who's a groper.
So I sleep most of the day before, and as soon as it finishes, I go back to sleep.
And then I just, pamper myself, which basically means putting on a big nappy, because that's another problem that happens. And then wax my bikini area. The chauffeur turns up about lunchtime, drives me to the gig.
What do? I do press-ups, both eyelids.
I have to say that I don't understand a lot of the time when people burst out laughing, because I read what's on my card, and it's perfectly straightforward to me. People don't complain about it for a very good reason, that they would only have to be sent a script to read, and they'd realize that it's their own filthy minds that are seeing innuendos in perfectly harmless things.
I tend not to practice the singing because there isn't very much point. I can't really tell whether I'm in tune or not, so it's of no consequence. I did once practice singing Sexual Healing because for pickup song, because I actually wanted to get it right, and then I thought that was really rather pointless since it wasn't going to come out in tune anyway, and all of our audience are so old that they won't know who Marvin Gaye is, or even know that slavery's been abolished in America. But I did over-practice that one. But in general, there isn't really any point me practicing the singing, because I know I'm purely on the show as an object of ridicule.
No. It's a very difficult concept, to singing one song to the tune of another, because I'm not mentioning any names, but there's some members of the team over the years who it's very difficult to distinguish what song they're singing, let alone what the words are.
Absolutely no idea. I don't know. I try and sing the words to the right tune, but apparently it's gone wrong somewhere over the years.
It needs another 30 years probably practice for them to get the hang of that one.